This is my review of my 2024 GSX 8R. Stay tuned, y'all. All right, so in this video, we're gonna be discussing several things, a lot of things actually. It's gonna be a longer video, so stay tuned, get your popcorn and stuff, right? So we're gonna go over my first impressions, what I thought when I walked into the dealership and when I first saw this bike when it was announced at EICMA. We're gonna talk about the performance. We're gonna talk about handling and ride comfort, suspension and braking, the tech features. This bike has some great tech features. We're gonna go over the sound, the exhaust note, the induction. We will also discuss fuel efficiency. This bike takes premium fuel. We'll talk about ergos. I am going to compare it with my time with the RS660, and I'm going to go over some pros and cons. And lastly, I want to talk about who should be, who this bike is for, really, right? The other thing I want to do is at the end, I'm going to actually go over and rate this bike on a scale of 1 to 10 for each of those categories. So I hope if you are shopping or looking for or interested in the GSX 8R, that this video helps you with your buying decision. Let me know. Drop it in the comment section. So stay tuned, y'all. If I'm honest, when I first saw the bike at EICMA, once it was released, I saw the triple beam headlamps or the Cyclops headlamps. I was kind of on the fence about it. But when I actually saw the bike in person at a dealership, I fell in love with the styling of the bike. It is very unique, and I think Suzuki did a great job distinguishing this bike against other bikes that are in this segment. So I do think that this bike is an awesome looking bike. Has a presence that you can't really get from looking at the bike online, on photos, or through video alone. The other thing about this bike is it is a larger bike. It has a large bike presence. Comparing it to other bikes, sitting it next to the GSX 8R, it is gonna look like it's a larger, full-size bike. And I know that's appealing, especially for taller riders. GSX 8R has a 776cc parallel twin dual overhead cam engine with a 270-degree crank. This bike has a ton of torque. It's very torquey, it's very punchy, and I promise you, if you're not careful, this bike will get away from you in Mode A. Not Mode C, but in Mode A, definitely. So great low-down torque in this engine. From the factory, for me, this bike had a perfect suspension. I'm about 185, 5'7". Bike is super comfortable. Absorbs shocks from like railroad tracks and bumps. It absorbs that with no problem. It does have great stopping power with a 310 millimeter disc. They're Nissan disc, so great stopping power. You've got about 5.1 inches of travel with the Showa inverted fork. And then in the rear, you get a monoshock that I believe is dampening and rebound adjustable. But yeah, overall, the suspension is perfect. Not a lot of adjustments, definitely with the front. There's nothing you can do as far as the front stock suspension, but it's calibrated really nicely from the factory. Obviously your weight and things like that are going to play a role as far as your comfortability with this, but for me, it was perfect right out of the bag. The GSX 8R is one of the most comfortable sports bikes I've ever ridden in my life. I've been enjoying it, and I'm only 5'7". I can flat foot this bike, okay? As you can see. So it is very approachable, even for someone my height. If this bike is actually more comfortable to ride than my entry level CBR 500R. It sits way more upright. It's almost to a point where I've seen, even me, for me personally, I could probably swap out those the clips for that have the risers for lower clip-ons, honestly. If I wanted a more sporty ride. I will say this though, with the seating position on this bike, if you want to just keep it stock, you could go, you could probably tour on this bike. You could put some saddlebags on here. If you wanted to really tour, you could probably tour on this bike. There's another channel that I've seen that actually, I believe it went from Texas to Ohio on the GSX 8R. So I know you can do it. The only thing I will say is that the seat is thin. That seat is very thin. And so, tracking those types of miles, you may run into a bit of some discomfort there. But if I've taken this bike on hour-long rides and was totally fine. But this bike is super, super, super comfortable. I haven't gotten to the ratings yet, but as far as comfort for this bike, I'm giving this a 10 out of 10. I don't know of another sport bike that could be like a real middleweight sport bike that could be this comfortable. Next, we'll talk about the tech features. One of my favorite features with this bike is the 5-inch TFT display, super bright. You can invert it to where it's either a white like this, or you can invert it where it's dark or black. No problem seeing it. It is a simple setup though. There's not a lot of customization that you can do with this TFT display. But it has, the gauge is clear as day. Like, no problem seeing where you're at as far as gas, miles per hour, RPMs, I'll get into the modes a little bit later, but the actual TFT display is superb. It's very simple, but it does its job and it's brilliant. Okay. Next, Suzuki has their drive mode. So you have A, B, C drive modes. And so C mode is gonna be very docile. I've mentioned this in other videos. You're gonna start with, I would say it's equivalent to maybe, I'm not even gonna say a Ninja 400. I'm gonna say it's probably closer to, as far as the torque delivery with the C mode, you're probably looking at something like a Ninja 250. There's not a lot of, very, very docile. If you're someone this is your first bike and you stay in C mode until you're ready to go to the B and A modes, you'll be totally fine in my opinion. The bike, I've cranked it, and in C mode, you'll get the speeds, but there's not a lot of torque that's gonna come out of the C mode. B mode is a mixture, right? You can tell that there's a significant difference between C mode and B mode. And B mode is, I could see wanting to ride in B mode pretty much all the time. For your touring, I would call that your touring mode, right? Where you can, it's just gonna do what it needs to do. It's not gonna feel hollow as far as the torque, but that may be your commute mode, right? But A mode, I'm gonna tell you right now, A mode, if you're not careful in A mode, that bike will snatch itself from you, okay? There's a ton of torque with this bike, and A mode is gonna be the mode that could get you in some trouble. The GSX 8R also has an electronic throttle system. And what it does is, in mode C and B, to me, it's super smooth, not snatchy at all. But you've got to be careful in mode A. Mode A, because of all that torque, in my opinion, can be a little snatchy when you're coming from like a stop if you're not careful. And that might be my own issue, because coming off of the RS 660, the throttle response is different between both bikes, and that could be an adjustment that I just have to make. But it is one of those scenarios where, to me, the Mode A can be a little bit snatchy. So be careful. If this is your first bike, stay away from Mode A for a little while, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, y'all. The GSX 8R is equipped with a bi-directional quick shifter system. I love it for upshifts. Don't love it for downshifts. It feels clunky to me for downshifts, especially compared to the RS 660. That's just my opinion. Your mileage may vary, but those were just my thoughts on it. It also has the Suzuki Easy Start system. It helps with basically coming from a stop, low RPM assistance system. So great for new riders. For me, it tripped me up a little bit initially when I picked the bike up from the shop. I kind of was like, what's going on here? But it doesn't take long to get used to if you've been riding for a little while. First, if this is going to be your first bike, it's cool, and I think it's a great help with getting started. What's going to happen is, though, when you get your next bike or you ride other bikes, it may take a little while to get used to other bikes. So just my thoughts on that. This is my absolute least favorite feature that this bike has. I thought I turned the bike off and locked it. As you can see, the bike is in this park mode here, where the lights come on. I've drained my battery twice with this mode. You have to make sure the position is in lock and not in this light mode. You will drain your battery if you do not make sure it's in lock mode, okay? So I guess this is for if your bike's parked on the road and you want to leave the lights on. For me, I'm gonna park my bike somewhere where I don't have to worry about that. You know what I'm saying? I get it, it's a safety feature. It needs to be a button, or it needs to time out after a certain amount of time. That is my rant. I'm not a fan of that feature. All right, we're gonna talk about exhaust here. I'm gonna do my battery's not dead. It's good. All right, so we're gonna do an exhaust. Bike's been on, so it's more. From the factory, the 8R exhaust is very, very, very quiet. It's almost to a point where when I have my helmet on, I could barely hear it, honestly. That could be me just getting older and my hearing not being the best, but I've seen this online where that's just one of those things with the 8R where that exhaust, there's not much there at all. So just keep that in mind. If you are shopping for the 8R and you like to hear your bikes, you're gonna need to get an exhaust, period, point blank. TST offers a great solution for, I'll talk a little bit more about this when we start talking into accessories and things like that for the bike, or add-ons and things. But from the factory, the exhaust is not great, in my opinion. I love the design of how it's incorporated, and it's not like a big can that's just coming out the side. It's integrated very nicely. But as far as the audio is concerned, it is very, very quiet. Fuel efficiency is great on this bike. I'm averaging about 52 miles per gallon. It does take premium fuel, so just keep that in mind if you're looking for a bike and you're concerned about putting premium fuel in the bike. That's something to consider. I always put premium fuel in my bikes, so it didn't matter, but it does require premium fuel on the 8R. Another great thing about the GSX 8R is the aftermarket support for this bike. You can go to TST Industries and go to town. They've got performance stage 2 and 3 ECU packs, exhaust from Aftermarket, ton of different things here where you could just really go to town. It's like a toy store for this bike. So this is one great thing, I think, when you have a bike that you can go out and get a ton of different accessories for, Farkles. It's gonna make you be able to kind of really make that bike your own and enhance it as you go. So that is another great attribute for the GSX 8R. I know a lot of the groundwork for that was the fact that a lot of that development came from the GSX 8S. So it makes it really easy for a lot of that stuff to transition over to the 8R. All right, so I'm gonna close this video up, but I wanna talk about a few things. One is who this bike is for. I would definitely say if you want an all-around, do everything, sporty looking bike that you could tour with if you wanted to, that it looks sporty, it looks great, you've got great tech features, quick shifter, drive-by-wire, you've got the modes, all that stuff. I think this is a great contender. Super torquey bike. This is a bike, if you have been riding for years, this is a great bike to come back to riding with. If you're starting off, this is your first bike. If you can stay in C mode, I think this bike you could really grow with. Has a ton of aftermarket support. So I do think that this is a great all-around bike. I will also say that the market is super competitive when it comes to the middleweight sport bikes. You've got the CBR 650R with that E-clutch. You've got the RS 660. That's going to be much sportier than the 8R from the factory. They're doing a update on that for 25. You've got the R9, which is going to be like that bike is going to be insane. You've got the Triumph. You've got the R7. You've got the CF Moto's dropping the 675. There are a ton. You've got the Ninja 650 as well, all within this middleweight sport bike market. There is a ton of competition. I'm not here telling you to pick one or the other, but I'm telling you that when it's time to make your purchase, get out, swing a leg over the 8R. It's a bike that I think you will be really happy with. It's just really balanced in pretty much everything. So that's just my 2 cents. All right, this is just my ratings on the 8R from the factory. So engine performance, I would definitely say this is gonna be about an 8.5 for me. The ton of torque, love the torque in the engine. After about 8,000 RPMs, there's not a lot there. I do think that there are other engines or motors that may have a little bit more pizzazz with them, like the Triple from Triumph, the Inline 4 from Honda. I even think that the Parallel Twin in the RS 660, it's just a little bit, there's something else, there's a little bit more spice with it. And I know it revs higher. So I'm definitely at an 8.5 for the engine on the on the 8R. Ton of torque. Handling, I think out of the box, handling is great. I'm gonna be at a 9 at the handling. Ride comfort gets a 10 all day. It's the most comfortable bike I've ever ridden, as far as sport bikes are concerned. Suspension and braking out of the bag, I think that there's not a lot of adjustability for the suspension, but it's very well calibrated. So I'm gonna give that an 8. Technology and features, it's got great technology, a quick shifter, the modes, you've got traction control, you've got the Suzuki RPM assist. So a lot of great features there. For the price point of $96.99, I'm going to definitely say that this is a 9 for technology. Okay. Exhaust note, that is going to get a 5. I'm not going to give it a 2 because it's you can hear it, but it's not great at all. So I'm going to definitely say that's a 5 for the exhaust note. Okay. Fuel efficiency. Fuel efficiency, I would say, is solid, right? I'm gonna give it an 8.5. The reason for that is it does require premium fuel, which I'm not dinging it for that, but it is something that if you're a buyer, you're gonna probably want to consider that if you're used to putting 87 in your bike. So I do think that the 8R is a fantastic bike, and if you're looking for that middleweight sport bike, you can't go wrong with this bike. If you're starting off or if you've been riding for a long time, it is a great machine. So out of the 70 points, the 8R scored a 58, which is a great showing in my opinion. There's nothing that's perfect. And I do think that this bike is a solid bike, especially for the $96.99 that you're paying for this bike. This is a bike that you can keep for years, throw a ton of miles on. And I think that Suzuki did their thing with this bike. I love this bike. And I think that it is one that if you're shopping or if you're cross shopping in this market, this should be on your list 100%. So just my 2 cents, guy on the internet. But what do you think? Where, out of those categories, where do you see the 8R in your opinion? Let's talk about it. Are you cross shopping the 8R with other middleweight sport bikes? Is there another bike that you're really considering? Let me know. Let's talk about it in the comment section. I appreciate y'all for watching. Appreciate all the new subscribers. Appreciate the OG subscribers. I want to check you on the next one. I hope y'all all have a great holiday season. Thanksgiving's coming up this week. Enjoy your families. Stay safe, y'all. Peace.